it's just talking to people. You know what I'm saying? It's conversations, and I'm good at that. I have a natural gift from God to be able to communicate with people and relate to people. And I learned so much from talking to people. The best thing that I ever learned in life is if you listen more than you speak, you'll always be able to understand somebody. And one thing that I learned is that we are much more alike than we are different. We just make that more complicated.
Yo, everybody, welcome to the Live Your Purpose podcast, episode number, what number we on? This is 7, episode number 7. First and foremost, I want to say thank y'all to everybody who's been supporting me. The first 4 episodes are out right now on YouTube, as well as on audio version available on Anchor, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. Thank you for everybody who's been hitting me up, telling me that they enjoyed it. Thank you to all the guests who came and sat down with me. I want to just say thank y'all for everything. Today we have another guest, somebody who is very important to me, somebody who's helped me a lot, somebody who's taught me, and I'm very interested into this. I'm looking forward to this conversation because I know it's going to be a lot of jewels, a lot of gems in this conversation that a lot of people are going to be able to benefit from. And be able to learn some stuff that I've learned, in my time dealing with this person. So without further ado, I'm gonna go ahead and read a little introduction of who we got, who we got in our guest today. We have his name is Marlan Jones. He is a father. He's an underwriter for a bank where he works on providing personal loans and personal lines of credit, and he's also a real estate investor. Not to mention he's a father, he's a husband as well. And he is like one of my biggest mentors in the real estate investing space. I would not even know what real estate investing was if it wasn't for this dude. So without further ado, Marlan, man, thanks for coming on, bro. I really appreciate you, man.
Hey, I appreciate you having me, man. This is an honor for real.
Yeah, no doubt. So what we gonna do, man? The way that we do it is, I get into people's stories a little bit, and I want to really be able to like highlight real estate as a whole, saying? What that looks like, to really be able to educate people. And who else would I do that with outside of you?
My God.
So before we even get into the real estate space, we're going to start at the beginning. You know what I'm saying? You right here from the city. Tell me what life was like for you, little Marlan, as a kid. What do you remember being a kid in this city, the time frame? Like, what was going on? What do you really remember? What was a vibrant time, exciting time going on for you during that time?
I'm an 80s baby. 90s raised me. So,
okay.
During that era, it was crazy, just seeing everything that was going on in the city. But I had a good family growing up. So it was one of those things where my parents kept me out the way. But at the same time, I still got to see a little bit of everything and, sometimes probably more than I wanted to see.
Right, that's a fact. Like many of us. What's funny is, man, my earliest memory of you, per se, was we had just moved out to Copley. I was in the 5th grade, and I remember I cannot think of dude's name who used to do the announcements over the thing. I think it was Mr. Fry, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. Bro, he was the coldest with the announcements, and he used to come on and do like all these sports, run down to the day before all the games and stuff. And I used to hear Marlan Jones. I'm like, man, who is this? Like crazy stats, scoring crazy assists. I'm like, man, I don't know who this dude is.
Yeah.
But he used to go crazy on you, and repping, how crazy you was on the hoop side. Yep. And that was like my earliest introduction to knowing who you were. And later we would find out that like we had similar ties, similar, family, and we turned out to, really be family, establish our relationship.
Yep.
But that was like some of my earliest memories
dope.
of you, So like, tell me, what that was like for you, having them early, hoop dreams like a lot of us, man, really wanting to be a athlete.
Man, really, for real, like, I feel like the level of focus that I picked up in life, it came from basketball, the desire to want to win, achieve, and just, success. Like, I think that cross applies to any field, and you first pick up those things in sports, you know, so, yeah, but my first love was definitely Spalding, but... Yeah. Hey, like most of us, that's not named LeBron. I ain't make it to the league, so I had to focus on something else.
Right, that's a fact. I like what you said, though. You picked up principles and values
Absolutely.
That you learned, from playing sports. That was big for me.
Absolutely.
What I'm saying? A lot of us, man, family wasn't always perfect. Some of the stuff that we missed at home,
right?
We gained that, At practice, whether that be on the court, the football field, wherever.
Yep.
And I definitely a lot of things in life for me today, I still apply the principles to basketball.
Most
Like,
definitely.
you know what I'm saying? I see and talk to people today. I'm like, man, I learn from sports. You know, I equate a lot of different things to sports. So I definitely,
Oh, for
you know
sure.
what I'm saying,
I mean,
feel you on
even
that.
you look at it like from a job standpoint. You always got that coworker where you look at him, you be like, this dude must not have never played a sport.
That's
You're not
a
a
fact.
team player. You're not a team
That's a
player.
fact.
And you can see it in people. So I think that stuff you learn early on, it definitely carry on the rest of your life.
Yeah. That's a super fact. Now tell me a little bit about, again, early on for you, because again, what I began to learn over the years is that, you know, some of your people, your parents, even your aunts and uncles, they were into the investing space from a landlord perspective. You know,
Yep.
just being able to have assets and be able to have some residual income coming
Definitely.
in. So like, how early do you remember like looking and seeing people investing in like having rental properties? Do you remember that time?
I want to say I remember my parents bought their first rental property. I was probably like 7 or 8 years old, and it was on Lovers Lane. And I want to say this is probably like maybe 92.
Okay.
They bought it. I think they paid like $7,500 for it. And I remember walking in there with them and just looking up, and you could see the whole upstairs from like the first floor, you know, of the house. But this is 25 years later. They still had a house, and they
Really?
still making money off
To
of
to
it.
this day.
To this day.
Wow.
The first one.
Wow.
You know, when I was 7, I'm 34 now. So
So when they had and they would take you by over there, then you were looking up and seeing everything. Did you know that it was like extra income, or did you just look at it like we got an extra house and like
Right.
we work it? They go fix it up sometime. Did you know? Did they talk to you about you know
they
what was
did.
going on?
They did. My mom let me know. She said, you know, one day this house is gonna be yours, and you know, we fixing this up. And even though I didn't want to come, you know, tag along, I wanted to do what I wanted to do. Her and my dad had me in there. You know, I thought I was helping. I was probably making it worse, but
Right,
you know,
right.
trying to help paint. But they wanted to give me that exposure to it at a young age to see it's more out here than just, you know, working a 9 to 5. That's good too.
Yeah.
But we want to have something for you to have one day.
Yeah.
You know.
And so do you remember them like specifically pushing that narrative on you as far as like, look, having a job is good, but you gotta have something else additional to add to what you already doing?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
They was very, very, you know, serious about that, you know, just because they said, hey, you can lose your job, you know, for doing nothing wrong
Right.
one day.
Right.
But the only way you're going to lose this house is if you don't pay your taxes or, you know, a mortgage, if you got a mortgage on it,
Right.
you know, and it was definitely something they pushed.
And again, man, that's an interesting thing because your father and my mother and a lot of my family members worked at the same place. Everybody, we from Ohio, we from the
Yep.
Midwest. The auto industry is the Midwest, especially here in
Absolutely.
Ohio. You know what I'm
Yep.
saying? Like we from Akron, like this is Rubber City.
You're right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
So a lot of times people, you know, a lot of our elders and people, you know, from back in the day, the way that they envisioned life was, all right, look, if school don't work, I'm going to go to work and get me a job, have it for 30, 40 years, get my benefits, get my Social Security, and that's it.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? But you're saying that although your people, same area, same thing, just the idea of them planting that seed in you early was
Yep.
was able for you to like, you know, really take the ball and run with it.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying, going forward.
Yeah, and I think I think they intentionally did that. They showed that to me and my brother at an early age just because they wanted us to instill a work ethic and just know that, you know, multiple streams of revenue is a good thing, is a great thing, is what you should strive for if you can and you have the means and desire to do so, because it's something you might be a doctor, but you can't pass that degree on to your daughter or your son.
Right.
So
Right. That's a fact. Man, another thing that I remember about you early on is, you know, again, we just kind of touched on like your family dynamics and instilling values. Like a lot of your family was just, you know, into the entrepreneurship space.
Definitely.
Like even Tutu, I remember when Tutu
Yeah.
was in high school, Tutu had one of the best hustle hands that I ever seen. He used to sell snacks and stuff like that in school. And check this out. He was making so much bread, the school made him quit. The school made him stop. They wrote a letter home and everything.
Uncle
like,
Sam
man,
jumped in and said, no, you're getting too much money.
you cutting in on the vending machine profits, bro. You cutting in. You messing up. So
Definitely.
what I say all that to say, you know what I'm saying, that with the family dynamics being what they were, I remember you doing eBay early back in the day, selling stuff on eBay, whether that was jerseys, shoes, all type of stuff,
The throwback game.
Yeah. Like, tell me like what you remember from that, like during that time period, and like, you know, I guess when the seed was planted, you know what I'm saying, or real estate, it was just the hustle hand, the entrepreneurship then, which you was able to take that into the eBay space too.
Definitely. And I think with the eBay thing, that a lot of that started with Tutu and Aunt Valerie. You know, just they from New York. You know, so we'd go up there and we would be able just shopping on a vacation trip. And hey, you know, I see these throwback jerseys and they 40% less than what they selling for at Next.
Yeah,
you know, so it was just an opportunity, and it was at a point where like eBay was kind of new at that point, and I was a customer on eBay. Like that's where I bought my shoes and my jerseys and stuff, the exclusive stuff. So I'm like, let me try it from a seller standpoint, and it took off.
Yeah,
it really took off. You know, so that was my real first, I want to say, entrepreneurial. You know, step into the water, put my toes in, and I learned more from eBay, I feel like, than I did at, I don't want to say in college, but like in a job sense, you know, just
now,
because.
I'm sorry, I'm going to cut you off, go ahead.
I mean, you just learn about supply and demand, you know. You see, I'm selling North Face coats right now in the summertime. Don't nobody want to buy North Face coats right now in the summertime. So I'm selling them at a discount now, you know, but you learn a lot from that stuff.
Yeah, that's good. That's dope. So you just kind of touched on it a little bit. I know you said you went to school for a minute. Did you ever finish school at all?
I did not finish. You know, I was focused on everything but school during that time frame when I should have been. But I made it to, I want to say, about 2.5 years in, and just life. You know, I needed a job. I needed to survive, and I left school and got my first like real job. I worked in the collections department at a bank. Nothing fancy. You know, I ain't ashamed to say it. I was making $11 an hour, but I was happy to make that $11 an hour.
That's a lot of bread, though.
You know?
You know what I'm saying? If your bills ain't too crazy, $11 an hour, you ain't got no kids. That's decent money at a certain time, though.
It was, but at the same time, I always wanted more. And I realized, I want to say probably 6 months into just solely working a 9 to 5 like that, I'm like, you know, I'm never going to be able to support the lifestyle I want to live with just this.
Right,
you know?
right. Yeah, that's I definitely understand it. Listen, I mean, it took me about 12 years to get me a 4-year degree.
But you got it though.
I did get it.
You got it though.
And I'm very happy that I got it. More so from the standpoint that like I was glad that I started something and finished it.
Absolutely.
But I am definitely, I'll always tell myself, if I could do it all over again, I would have said fuck school early, and I would have just jumped into real estate, or I would have did something to like where I could make my bread right away, where the return on investment was quicker, it was easier. Absolutely. It would have made a little bit more sense. But I'm not mad that I went.
Hindsight, they say, is 20/20 all the time. You know, like if I could go back, me knowing what I know now and what I do now, I would have picked up a trade and would have became a carpenter and never went to college.
Right.
Just flat out, just because that skill set applied more so to what I'm doing now than anything I for real learned in college.
Yeah.
And I was a business major. So
yeah, that's dope. Now, real estate. I want us to kind of touch on like different aspects of it. What it looks like from a lending standpoint. But again, when we had spoke about this interview, one thing I said that I wanted you to touch on is just the mindset that goes into it. Because man, we hear people talk about the mindset aspect from like a guru standpoint. You know what I'm saying? It's always like, at least when I see a broadcast, there's a couple dudes out there on the forefront who really doing it big, but it's mostly white dudes talking about it, you know what I'm saying, from an aspect, from a mental aspect that I don't think a lot of times black dudes or just black people in general can necessarily lean on to.
Right.
So I want you to just be able to speak to the overall mindset that you think that you need, that anybody would necessarily need in order to like be in this space and be successful at it.
Absolutely. I mean, for me, I invested in communities that I'm comfortable in. Mm-hmm. A lot of people might not be comfortable in the neighborhood surrounding Copley Road, but for a good portion of my life, I grew up over there. Mm-hmm. So it's one of those things where I look at it as an opportunity to obviously build some passive income with a rental property, but B, also helping, rebuild a community that I feel a part of. Yeah. So it's not easy all the time,
mm-hmm.
But it's worth it.
Mm-hmm.
It's definitely worth it. And it's something that it's not an overnight thing, it's about longevity. If I could say one word, is longevity. You're thinking long term,
mm-hmm.
So you might have one rental property and you might net maybe $400 after, all your expenses is paid every month. But if you can, look at that from a macro standpoint and multiply that, by multiple houses, that's job income after a while, and it's something that you can pass on. So, but you definitely got to think long term and respect the rental properties.
Right. Jay Morrison always says, he said, real estate is get rich right. It's not get rich quick.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? It's more so about the long term play.
Absolutely.
As far as the mindset, not just that, not just investing in community that you feel a part of, because I think that's super important. A lot of people don't talk about that either. It's like,
Right.
obviously we hear about the return of investment. It makes sense from the number standpoint. But I like that aspect of, investing, where you feel comfortable, where you
Definitely.
feel a part of the community, where
Absolutely.
you're actually doing a service.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But also touch on the mindset aspect as far as like the fear, you know what I'm saying?
Okay.
The risk taking, you know what I'm saying?
yeah.
Like the,
That's a big part of it.
Yeah. Touch on that. Talk about that a little bit.
I mean, with every deal you do, that fear, that never leave. It don't matter how much money you got, because this is real life money. This is your livelihood that you're putting on the table here. So I think that fear is a good thing, but doing your due diligence behind the scenes is more important, and that subdues the fear. Just knowing that I know this is a good buy at X amount. I know it's going to take me X amount to get it fixed up, and I know that I can get a tenant in here paying this amount, and the numbers work. So as long as the numbers work and you really do your due diligence beforehand, the fear is real. I got a duplex under contract right now, and I got the bubbles in my stomach right now still, just because I'm cutting it close, but I know it's a good deal, and, I'm going to do what I got to do to make sure it works. That's the key, You got to really be able to get your feet wet. Like, I'm not a contractor. I'm not the most able person with my hands, but I do enough to, contribute and make sure it get done. I think another big key is networking, building good relationships. Like, I got a lot of different contractors that I work with and go to for different stuff that, they've saved me a lot of different times, and they've done it reasonably. But it's all about relationships, So
touch on, because I like that. I like that, doing your due diligence, being proactive.
Absolutely.
That will eliminate a lot of the anxiety and fear that comes along with it. Touch on a little bit about what aspects of due diligence you think is important. You know what I'm saying, and looking for the deal, and just in general. What is part of doing your due diligence to you?
I think one of the most important things is know what comps are in your neighborhood.
Comparables, for sure.
If you know what comparable houses, and when I say comparable, if you got a 3-bedroom, 1-bath ranch, know what 3-bedroom, 1-bath ranches is selling for within a mile to 2 or in your zip code. If they're selling for $40,000 and you can get a house for $15,000 that only need $5,000 worth of work to it, you can be done for $20,000. But if you don't, understand what the market is, you might be buying above market value. And I always tell people, you don't make your money in real estate when you sell. You realize your gain, your profit when you sell. You make your money when you buy the property, when you buy under market value. That's where you can have the nicest house on the block, but if it's $50,000 more than everything surrounding it,
it don't matter.
It don't matter. No bank's going to finance it, and no, half smart person is going to pay $50K more to live next to, a house that's $50,000 less per se.
Yeah.
So the comparables, just understanding your market, where you're putting your money at, is extremely important.
So when you talk about actually running the comps and being able to do your due diligence with the comps, are you using realtors to get specific comps? Are you using Zillow, the Trulias?
All of the above.
Because a lot of people will tell you, you can't trust the Zillows and the Trulias. The numbers aren't always so accurate.
And what I say is the Zestimate that you see on like a Zillow isn't generally accurate, but they have an option where you can go in and click on sold properties.
Okay.
And if you go in there and click on the sold properties, those are comps. Those are realistic comps for you.
Okay.
It's just knowing that they sold. Now, if it's
that's a good gem right there.
Yeah, if it's a property that, you might have to do a little bit more deep digging, because if it was for sale by owner, that may not get listed by the bank as a comp, because they don't look at it, it didn't go on the market. Essentially, it wasn't listed on MLS. But any of those sold comps on Zillow, so I use a combination of both. I use a realtor, but I also do my own due diligence. Just as a fun fact, I can tell people I've never had a realtor find me a house out of all the deals I done did in my life.
Really?
I've always found my own, just because it's one of those things where not all realtors, you got a lot of good ones, you got some bad ones, you got a lot of selfish ones. They get paid percentage-wise based off of the amount that, the house sells for. So it behooves them to, don't look at them $15,000 houses. Let's find one that's 45 or 50,
right.
That's nice and pretty and moving and ready. that's not my niche.
Right,
You know, for me,
right.
I don't care if it's, you know, $3, $5, $10,000, whatever, 20. It's all about a numbers game.
Yeah,
You know, and
yeah.
at the end of the day, it's my money. You know, you might be good at what you do as a realtor, and it's not bad mouthing realtors because there's a lot of great ones. My mother-in-law is a realtor, and I use her for most of my deals.
Okay, dope.
But even with that being said, I know what I want.
Right.
You know, so I'm proactive in finding my own deals.
Yeah, yeah, and I mean, you just said it, you know, a couple minutes ago about, you know the importance of having relationships.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? Using and working with the people, you know, whom you trust.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? So they can get you those good numbers.
Yep.
So when you finding these deals, are you talking to people who know what the market is looking like off market, or are you strictly looking for the deals that are listed and on market?
It's a combination of both.
Okay.
Like, it's a combination of both. If I'll put it like this, if you're an owner occupant, you looking to actually live in a house, it's a lot easier for you to find a great deal because you got places like HUDHomestore.com, which is the FHA foreclosed houses, where for the first 20 days, they won't sell to an investor. They'll only sell to people who plan on living in the house. So you got a great opportunity to get some owner occupied. You got a great opportunity to get some deals for under market value. Another one is homesteps.com or homepath.com. Those is all foreclosed properties that's, you know, foreclosed by government, you know, backed entities that they want to sell to people who want to live in the properties as opposed to investors first and foremost. If no owner occupants come to buy those properties, then they'll sell to investors. So
I got you. So you even doing your due diligence with the information
Absolutely.
that you got to know.
Absolutely. Like, I go on them websites constantly, and I'm, you know, itching, just wait until the investor period comes because a lot of the properties they need, you know, they might need a new roof. They might be ugly on the inside, but the underlying value within that neighborhood, it might be a $60,000 neighborhood, and, you know, the house is a $20,000 house, but you can only buy it cash. So a lot of owner occupants will, you know, maybe, even though, you know, they see some possibility in the house, that may not be the one for them because they're afraid of the unknown with that house.
Right. Talk to me about the mortgage industry. You know what I'm saying? How did you even get involved into you know, underwriting into the mortgage industry as a whole? Where did that even start?
Like I said, my first real job like when I left school, I worked in collections at a big bank around here. And like, that's what really got me serious about investing. I ain't gonna say the dude's name, but I worked with a dude who was a year older than me, African-American, young black dude, and he really motivated me. Like, even with, you know, seeing my parents do it, my aunts and uncles do it, like, this dude really motivated me because he was a year older than me and he had 5 rental properties and I ain't had nothing but pocket change in my pocket. You know,
how old were you at this time?
I was 22.
So he 23.
He 23 with 5 houses. He's from Cleveland. Yeah. And I'm like, man, you know, I'm looking at him like, this dude just like me, you know. I'm prideful a little bit, you know. He ain't no smarter than me, you know. What am I doing wrong? And that's what really, for real. Like, if I had to point to one scenario, like, he motivated me to make me really want to take it serious, just because he like, bro, you spinning your wheels. You think these folks gonna make you the manager in here? Like, it's not gonna happen. Do something for yourself. And like, I ain't gonna say his name because I don't think he want his spot blowed up that. But we cool still. But he probably got like 30, 40 right now. You know, so I still, every now and then I still reach out to dude, you know, like, hey, you know what you know, and I consider him a mentor to me essentially.
Okay. Yeah, that's cool. You know what I'm saying? That's good, man. You know what I'm saying? To be able to get that insight from wherever it's at. You know what I'm saying? That's really, to me, like, that's some spiritual components in there, like putting people in your path to like give you the game. You know what I'm saying? So you can like take it and run with it and do your own thing with
Absolutely. And dude was completely open about like just telling me how he got to that spot, what his future plans was, and just being transparent about it. And I think for me, seeing somebody who looked like me, who roughly the same age as me, doing what I really want to do, but I'm kind of pitter-pattering about it. Like, you know, hey, he can really do, you know, this is possible. Like, it's just, it take the dedication, you know?
Yeah. So when you left when you were at the spot doing the collections, did you end up just staying at this place and just kind of moved up to get into the underwriting?
I mean,
how did you even know to even like jump into, because you wanted to get into the real estate space and you knew that was a good access into doing so?
Definitely. It was twofold. It was one of those things where I wanted to make more money and I knew I needed to get in a different area. So I did get promoted into a different area at this company, but it wasn't what I wanted to do. And I realized working there, I'm like, you know, without a college degree, the best field I can get into to actually make a sustainable amount of money that's okay is probably getting into underwriting. You know, so I didn't actually become an underwriter there. I left and became a mortgage loan officer first and foremost. Went to another bank. I think in banking, a lot of times you got to jump around to really get the opportunity and the money that you want. But I went to another bank, became a mortgage loan officer, and I learned the ins and outs of the mortgage side of things, you know, slanging mortgages pretty much as a loan officer. And that was extremely helpful because, I mean, you get to see it, you know, wholeheartedly, you know, experience with every loan program available. You know, you're doing FHA loans, you're doing VA loans, and it's like, hey, you know, you only got to put 3.5% down with an FHA loan. Like I can do that, you know? So that was it. And then I left there and I went to another bank and worked in like an asset manager, like position, kind of like it was a collections, like foreclosure, bankruptcy. And then I went to another bank, and that's where I got my opportunity in underwriting. I started as a loan processor, processing mortgages and stuff, and eventually got promoted to a position where I could do, you know, underwrite mortgages and whatnot. So.
Yeah. So were you learning anything about the sales aspect of it too?
I mean, you deal with, I don't want to say directly, you deal with realtors, but you see the sales contract, you see the purchase contract. You have realtors calling in, you know, asking questions about their deal and whatnot. So you definitely, you know, deal with realtors and whatnot. But for me as an investor, you know, I can be honest with you, I haven't always had the best credit. So, you know, from an underwriting standpoint, I wanted to learn, what's it going to take for me to get my loan approved? You know, what am I doing wrong, or what's wrong with my profile that where I'm getting declined or I'm not getting approved for the amount that I want? And I applied that to my life, you know. So I think for me, I put both feet in the water. You know, my day job corresponds with what I do after work too. And I think, you know, just like you said, living your purpose, like I feel like my purpose is to help build up this community where I'm at and, you know, do stuff with, you know, real estate. So I really use my day job to help my part-time job and, you know, build up from that.
And see, I like what you said. I heard somebody say, I can't think who it was who said it, but they said, it's another podcast I like to listen to. And the person on the podcast, they said that your first investor into your business is your job.
Yeah,
like,
that's
you know,
real.
You know
That's
what I'm saying?
so true.
Like a lot of times in the entrepreneurship space, at least today, social media, the way that things have been socialized today, a lot of times it's the facade of like, you got to quit your job and just chase your dreams. And as good as that sound, that ain't really real like that.
Not if you got kids and responsibilities.
Yeah, that's a fact. You know what I'm saying? So I like what you're saying as far as like, listen, I utilize what I was doing over here to help me fund, you know what I'm saying, my dreams and doing things, you know, to really establish myself as an investor.
Yep.
So I like that messaging, you know what I'm saying, for real.
Definitely.
Take me to the first time you bought your first piece of property. Was you
property.
nervous? Was you scared? Was it a good deal? Do you still have it today? Like, talk to me about that first deal and that first piece of property that you had.
My first property, man, you know, I had been itching, you know, people think it happened overnight. It took me realistically probably 18 months to get my credit and my down payment and everything into a position where I was ready to actually go in and buy a house. So it's a process. You got to pay them bills on time, pay down debt, you know, do what you got to do to get that debt to income ratio in line. But my first property, it was in the hood, but it was a hood that I was familiar with. 704 City View. You can look it up. Yeah. I put the address out there. I ain't going to lie to you. It was a Home Path. It was a Home Path Fannie Mae foreclosed property, and this was 2011. And I bought it for $34,000, but it was a new construction house, so it was built probably maybe 7-8 years ago. And this is during the period where like you can get houses for dirt cheap. Like prices have gone up now since then, but like this house when it originally was built in 2000 and I want to say maybe 5, it had sold for $120,000. And I got it for $34,000, you know, so, you know, at that time, it was only worth $34,000 per, you know, whatever appraisal the bank did or whatever. But my wife and I, you know, I don't want to say just me because it's a team. You know, we was married. She was pregnant with my little girl. We bought our first house and like it was a fixer-upper, but it wasn't terrible, you know. And I was fortunate where my dad is a carpenter. You know, my father-in-law is a carpenter. So, you know, on the weekends, they'd come in, help out. But me and my pregnant wife, we in there painting walls, you know, spackling walls. I'm learning on the fly. You got to be willing to get your feet wet. And it's definitely a risk. But for me, I call it a live-in flip. And why I say a live-in flip is because I knew I was going to sell that house. But I knew I had to buy a house with equity in it. I need to buy right first, to make my future plans and goals actually feasible. But I paid $34 for it. We probably put $5,000-6,000 in it. Lived there for 18 months and sold it for $91. So
that's a come up.
How
long did you have it?
I had it for 18 months.
18 months.
And the reason I specialize, I say 18 months is, as an investor, this is a gem for a lot of people. If you live in a house per the tax code for more than 12 months, you don't have to pay taxes on any gain that you make on that property as long as you live in it for 12 months. So, when we sold that, that's like
a gem.
It's a gem.
Yeah.
If you don't live in that house, even if you do own it for a year, you still got to pay it, capital gains on any amount you make profit wise, on the house. But nonetheless, definitely for owner occupants, if you sell your house, stay there at least a year. But going into it, every property that I've ever bought, I look at it as an investment, even the house I live in, because at the end of the day, I never know. You might lose your job tomorrow. Stuff might get tight. We might have another kid. If I need to sell tomorrow, I know I can not only get out, but I can probably put a couple dollars in my pocket at the same time.
Right. So on the scared to shit meter, where were you at 1 to 10 when before you even purchased it?
Oh man, it's scared to shit. My wife was pregnant with, I'm about to have my first kid. Like we buying this fixer upper. I don't know what's wrong with it.
Right.
I mean, besides the visible stuff, like it's always something that pop up out the blue. But you definitely was scared. But it was one of those things where I had did my due diligence, and when I say due diligence, I knew that this house, truthfully, even though I got it for $34,000, is worth more than $34,000 because you can't build this house right now for less than $100,000.
Right.
So my thought process was I'm gonna do whatever it takes to make it nice, livable, and appealing to somebody else, and for us to be comfortable while we live there.
Even with the location being in the hood, you knew all of that stuff was possible.
Absolutely, because it's one of those things where people had paid $120,000 to live in this hood. So it was one of the things. It's only a hood to somebody from the outside.
Right.
To me, it was home.
Right.
So it didn't scare me that, hey, it's gunshots over there. We lived over there, for the first 10 years of my life.
Right.
Like, definitely.
Talk to me about, because you mentioned this a little bit, like, at one point your credit wasn't always on point. Like,
right.
What did you do to, like, assist yourself in building your credit? Because when I talk to different people, even myself at one point in time, before I even got into the space, I had to get my credit right. I didn't know what the hell debt to income ratio was. Right. I didn't know how debt to income ratio messed up my credit. Like, my mom would always kind of say to me as a kid, pay your bills on time. If not, your credit gonna be messed up. And I heard her, it sat with me, but I didn't really understand the impact of having credit, why it's important to have good credit, how you can, do things to get bad credit, ways to build up credit. So talk about some things that you did specifically to kind of like help yourself build up your credit.
I think for me, a lot of it was working in that collections capacity and seeing other people like they in the process of losing their house, You
knew the system.
Yeah, I'm examining. I'm like, so part of my job was figuring out what put you in that bad spot. So in the back of my mind, I'm taking notes, what I shouldn't do. But at the same time, my credit, like I said, wasn't always the best. And it was credit cards was my downfall. It was one of those things where it's easy to swipe. You don't think nothing of it. And then next thing you know, you got $1,000 on that card. Oh, well, now you're carrying a balance. So for me, it was just trying to not use the credit cards and just paying them down. I think as a rule of thumb, as an underwriter, I can tell you now, for revolving credit usage, you want to keep that at or below 30%. So
what does that mean? What does revolving credit usage mean?
It means like if you got a credit card or like a home equity line of credit per se, not so much a home equity line, but more so credit card. If you got $1,000 available to you, you really only want to, at the end of the month, have no higher than the balance of $300 reporting, unless you pay it down every month. A lot of the wealthier people that I've done loans for, I've noticed they pay down, they don't use, per se, the cash in their checking account. They swipe for everything to get the points, whatever their credit card get them, and then they pay it down every month. That may not be a strategy for everybody. I personally don't really do that, but I think, keeping your credit card usage down below or at 30%, obviously paying your bills on time and living within your means. Like I want a Corvette. I probably on paper could make it work, but it's one of those things where is getting a Corvette going to stop me from getting this sixplex that I want to buy?
Right.
Corvette or sixplex?
Right.
I want the sixplex more than I want the Corvette, because if I get the sixplex, I might not even want the Corvette no more. I might look at an IA. You got to look at it like that.
Yeah. Now, does the 30%, does that work the same with with HELOCs too, with home equity lines of credit as well?
It's still considered a revolving trade line, but the credit scoring looks at it a little bit different. So a HELOC don't necessarily get counted as much per se, but definitely like for bank credit cards and those type of revolving trade lines, you definitely want to keep those at a 30%. A HELOC doesn't really affect it the same.
Okay. So talk to me about the different. Well, first off, tell me like what does an underwriter do? What does that look like on a day to day? And after that, I want you to kind of touch on a little bit about like the different type of loans. The conventional loans, the FHA. What are some of the others that people are not familiar with that they probably should be? But first and foremost, tell me exactly like what an underwriter does. What does that look like?
I think, for people in the mortgage process or the loan process, the underwriter is the bad guy.
Okay.
You're always the bad guy.
You denying or approving.
You denying or approving. You're the one making a credit decision on a loan application, and it's tedious work, but it's meticulous at the same time because, as much as a tenth of a percentage can, make or break a loan. So I think, for me, I enjoy it, just because every loan is kind of like a puzzle. You're putting the pieces together, and you're trying to help somebody at the same time. I think contrary to a lot of people's beliefs, my life is a lot easier when I'm doing nothing but approving loans.
Right.
If I got a whole bunch of denials, I know I got a whole bunch of phone calls coming in from the loan officer. So my days start off with, just pulling credit reports, verifying bank statements, looking at appraisals.
So what would cause somebody to get their loan denied?
There's a lot of moving variables. It's a couple of pillars of credit I think people can talk about. You got your credit score, you got your capacity to repay, which is, your DTI, and those are two of the main ones really.
Okay.
There's four, but in hindsight, it's really credit and capacity to repay. If your credit score is bad, obviously, for a mortgage or for any loan for that matter, that shows an inability to repay on time. That's an additional risk from a bank standpoint. You're probably not going to get your loan, approved if you got a whole bunch of late pays. But even if you do have a bunch of late pays, if you start today and you get everything current, in a couple of months, you can probably get a loan. It's like I've seen people with horrible, terrible credit, get denied and 6 months later come back and it's a slam dunk approval. So It's all about how serious you are about improving your current situation.
Yeah, and the worst thing you can do is not pay your credit, right?
The worst.
That's the worst thing. You can't avoid it.
There's no running from it.
Yeah.
People, I see all this stuff. People talk about CPNs and all these other tricks and stuff to try and circumvent the system. At the end of the day, pay your bills on time. Get yourself current. Make the sacrifice for the 3 to 6 months. Heck, it might be a year.
Yeah.
Do what you got to do to get current on your stuff. Pay it on time. Pay stuff down. And cash is king, but you can do a lot with credit. With credit.
Yeah.
With $10,000 in cash and A1 credit, you can do just as much, if not more, as somebody with $100,000 cash.
Yeah, and like you, man, we all kind of been there. You know what I'm saying? At one point in time, having terrible credit. I can remember being one of these people that's avoiding.
Definitely. Yeah,
like I got this bill. Nah, I'm putting that money I'm not paying that right now. I'll be all right. Yeah, I'll be all right. But
I get to them later.
Yeah, that's a fact. But now I learn, no, that's going to come back and bite you in the ass if you don't go ahead and just, handle it now. And you feel better when you get that stuff done,
Absolutely.
man. When you working towards something and you just chipping away, you feel better about that.
No doubt.
You know what I'm saying? So that's a good thing. So touch a little bit about, the conventional loans, FHA loans, different type of loans out there. Touch on some of those.
I think it's a big misconception in the world that it's super hard to get a house.
Okay.
It's not.
Mm-hmm.
It's not.
Break that down.
It's not that hard. If you go FHA, so what I tell most other people who I talk to that's trying to get into the, investing, but they maybe they haven't purchased a home just yet for themselves to live in. I tell them, look at an FHA loan, because with an FHA loan, you only got to put 3.5% down of the purchase price. So if you're buying a $100,000 house, that's $3,500. Mm-hmm. That's a tax refund.
Mm-hmm. It's tax season.
It's tax season.
Y'all about to get them taxes back. Put that money down.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Try to get you an FHA loan.
And not only that, but with an FHA loan, they do loans down as low as mid 500 credit score. So it's a government backed agency. It's essentially it's the government. The government's not going to originate the loan. You're going to go to a bank. Any bank in the world, almost every bank in the world do FHA loans. The bank's going to originate the loan, but the government's gonna buy it.
Yeah.
So,
Even your credit unions do FHA loans.
yeah, everybody do them. You know, and you only got to put 3.5% down, and you can, you know, I don't want to, you know, cite specifics because I don't do FHA loans, but I believe the middle score is mid 500s.
Okay.
So if you got a 550, somebody, you might have to call around, you know, the bank up the street might not approve you, but you really got to hit the concrete and call around and find out, you know, for your specific scenario if it's a good deal. But yeah, FHA, and like you can have some collections on your accounts too with FHA. So like they really, the purpose of that whole loan program is to get people who want to live in a house in a house. You know, you got other loan scenarios where it's a conventional mortgage. A conventional mortgage, generally speaking, requires you to put 20% down. But like the mortgage industry is always moving and changing. They got, you know, loan programs where, you know, the house I live in, I did a conventional loan, but I was savvy with it and we did a 5% conventional loan. So what it means is you only got to put 5% down, but you got to pay mortgage insurance. So the option we did was a 5% conventional loan with prepaid mortgage insurance. So I paid, you know, I asked for seller's concessions from the seller, and I had him essentially pay my, I guess you could say my mortgage interest for the loan. So I got in my house with, you know, only putting 5% down.
Really,
you know,
really
yeah.
using a conventional loan.
Using a conventional loan.
And the difference, like one of the stipulations and the difference between conventional and FHA, FHA, you have to live in the property.
Correct.
Where conventional, you can choose to live in it, or it can be investment property. Correct.
Well, it really depends on when you originate the loan, what your intention is. You know, it varies. Like if I go in, there's conventional investor loans and conventional owner occupant loans. As an investor, if I go in to buy a single family property, I got to put 25% down. If you live in a property, you only got to put 20% down. So, but I mean, it's still essentially the same loan, but nonetheless, it's a good option. And the big, you know, most people will say, well, why would you go conventional instead of FHA? Well, if you don't plan to live in a house, you can't go FHA.
Right.
FHA is only for owner occupants.
Right.
With a conventional loan, you know, you do have the option to be an investor on a property, like you mentioned.
So why would a person pick conventional over FHA who was going to live in it?
Generally speaking, I think for a conventional loan, the biggest one is you don't pay mortgage interest if you put in the 20% down. And that mortgage interest on an FHA loan, you pay an upfront premium and then you pay a monthly premium every month for only being able to put 3.5%
on your mortgage, down. Right?
Yes. So essentially, like that money is not paying down your mortgage. You paying some third party company and insurance to, you know, say, hey, if in the event of default, they'll pay the bank off. You know, so that PMI, and when you're talking about, you know, you buy $100,000 house, that might add $100 or $200 on your payment. So you really got to weigh, do I want to put more down and, you know, avoid PMI, or do I want to put less down and maybe have a mortgage payment that's maybe $150, $200 more a month than what it could be if I put a little bit more down. So
yeah. So again, like one of the reasons for even starting this podcast is that, like, you know, I really want to try to bring awareness and like really educate people on certain things. And it sounds like, you know, at least for people just trying to really just jump into the game to kind of get their feet wet, really get a taste of what it's like, the FHA loan really might be your best bet, especially if your credit may be a little bit lower.
Yep.
It's less money to put down.
Yep.
But there are some, I don't want to say stipulations, but there's like a longer process with the FHA loan. Can you talk a little bit about that as well?
I mean, with you only putting 3.5% down potentially, the loan there, that's a lot more stringent than a conventional loan. That's another, you know, thing that I'm glad you touched on. With an FHA loan, you can't have no chipped, peeling paint, no rickety steps. You know, everything has to be up and running and functional and in good, you know, standing essentially. But with a conventional loan, you know, the furnace might not work technically, and you still might be able to get, you know, your conventional loan approved based on the fact that you got, you know, 20% equity in the property, or you paid the, you know, upfront PMI. And it's not as cumbersome as an FHA loan. The best way to put it, you know.
Now, what about conventional like is it 401? Is that the name of the loan?
The 203K?
The 203K where you can get the same interest rates and things like that, but you also get money for
the renovation,
the rehab and everything. Yep. What is it? What type of loan is that?
That's called a FHA 203K loan, and it's a renovation loan that allows you to still only put 3.5% down. So what it is pretty much you find a house you like, you get pre-approved for with an FHA 203K approved lender. Not every bank that does FHA loans does a 203K program. So you're going to have to look around a little bit to find a 203K lender. But if you can, it's worth its weight in gold because you can buy that house that, don't have no running water, need a furnace, need a roof, need a hot water tank, but is way below market value. They do require you to use like a licensed and bonded contractor to do the repairs. But essentially, just throwing out numbers, let's say the house, you can get it for $20,000. It needs $20,000 worth of repairs, and the after repair value is $60,000. So essentially, the FHA loan allows you to buy the house for $20K. The contractor does the repairs, that costs another $20K, and you have a $40,000 mortgage that you only have to put 3.5% down on. I'm not going, I ain't smart enough to do the math on top of my head, but
I got you.
You only got to put 3.5% of that end number 40% down, as so long as the house will appraise. And you got 96.5% equity or 96.5 loan to value within the house.
Yeah.
You're good.
Yeah. So people who want to get into the FHA space, there is also a process and they may not have money outside of the the 3.5%.
Right.
There's a option out there that will give you money, for the rehab that you can apply for as well. The only thing is a lot of banks don't always offer that type of loan, but it is available.
It is available. Okay. Absolutely. And like another thing that's a misconception about FHA loans is you can actually buy up to a fourplex with an FHA loan. So I always tell a lot of people, like, I was kind of, I just jumped out there when I jumped into the real estate space, but like hindsight is 20/20. If I could go back, I would still probably buy that first property I bought, but my second property would have probably been a fourplex.
You would have lived in it.
I would have lived in it, just for the simple fact that I can get in there for 3.5% down. And at that time, you was able to get, a fourplex for maybe 25, 30,000. Yeah. Today, that same fourplex might be 60 or 70.
Right.
So, but hey, you live and you learn.
And you in situations like that, you be able to live rent free because somebody else will be paying your rent for you, and you'll be able to make money on top of while you just living there.
Absolutely.
And then you could either keep it and hold it, or you be able to be able to flip the asset. You have exit strategies. When you do something like that.
Definitely.
So that's
multiple options.
Yes, multiple options, which is a big thing, really in anything,
for sure,
but especially in the real estate space, leaving your options,
absolutely,
completely open.
And you touched on an important thing, knowing an exit strategy. Like, I think one of them, besides buying under market value, I think knowing your end goal with a property is probably the second most important thing. I've seen people just buy a house just because they want to get in the real estate industry, but it's like, is it going to be a flip? Is it going to be a rental property? And knowing what you want to do with that property up front and having a defined goal can make or break you, So definitely, know your end, your exit strategy if there is one. If it's a long term, cool, but definitely know what you want to do though.
Yeah. Talk to me about some of your biggest mistakes or failures, things that you did along the way that you able to, again, look back on now like, okay, I know I messed up there. If I could do that again, I'm definitely going to go about it this way. Something that you learned, something that really kicked you, that
definitely.
That you learned and can kind of defer from the day.
I bought my first house in 2011, and I think I learned my most important thing in the real estate game that I've learned so far, probably in 2018. I had bought a duplex, paid cash for it, and I underestimated the repairs. And it kind of put me in a tight spot financially with that duplex. So I think I don't want to say cocky, but you could probably say cocky and just, I got this. So it's one of those things where look at every deal like it can make or break you. Every deal. It don't matter if it's a small, property where you got plenty of resources to go in and make it happen. Look at every deal at like it can make or break you, because realistically, you never know. You really never know. So, But for me, I think it was on that specific duplex. It was underestimating the repairs that was needed and then not properly financing it right up front. Like I had the option to get a mortgage up front, and I chose to pay cash, I got a little bit better of a deal, but in hindsight, it would have made more sense to finance it up front, keep my cash on hand, and then the renovation would have been, done quicker and more efficiently than what I was able to do it, so I learned from that one. I ended up actually, getting that property done and selling it at a profit. Mm-hmm. But it was one of those things where I tell anybody, I learned more from that house than the, 15 or 20 other ones I ever touched, just because, even from a renovation standpoint, it was the first duplex I ever bought, and it was like a gut rehab on both sides, which is cool. But one of the biggest mistakes I made was I gutted both sides at the same time. I bought 2 new furnaces, 2 new hot water tanks, 2 new kitchen cabinets, all at the same time.
You went all out.
I went all out because it needed all that stuff. But in hindsight, I should have did one unit, finished one unit at a time, and then, did the same thing on the other side, because here I am 80% done on both sides, but neither one is completely finished.
And you can't rent one of them out.
I'm looking like, all right,
right.
I'm going to have to get my hands a little bit dirtier than what I have to. But it make or break you, you know, and I got in there, and I'll put it like this. I learned how to do some stuff I had never had to do, as far as, from a contractor standpoint, like almost like on some carpentry stuff, with my dad installing cabinets and stuff. It was a humbling experience because I had so much success before, but it ended up, what could have been a bad deal ended up turning into a profitable one in the long term. And I put it like this: I learned more on that one than any other deal.
Yeah, you got some education. You
Definitely.
just pay for some education. That's all it was.
I paid for it.
You just had to pay the toll. It's like that sometimes.
My wife was laughing at me because, man, it was stressing me out so bad, man. It was a point where I had like a patch in my head. She's like, "You really got stressed?" It's like, man, I'm losing my hair over this.
Right.
When this is your life, you know what I'm saying? Like, so that's why I tell anybody, don't look at it like, oh, it's gonna be easy, because it's not hard, but you got to be dedicated. You got to really, it's like I work a day job, but when I get off work, some days I got to go meet a prospective tenant. Then I got to go, pay a contractor, my kids, and we picking up McDonald's on the way home, as my daughter doing her homework in the car or trying to read her book. Like, it's dedication. But I tell her at the end of the day, her and my son, this is going to be yours one day. This is going to help pay for your college one day, So, like, this is why I do that,
Yeah, that's dope. And that's really, that's really what it's all about. You know what I'm saying? At the end of the day, making sure that the steps that you take today is going to help the people that come after you.
Absolutely.
You know what
Absolutely.
I'm saying? What do you think about like an upcoming recession hitting the market? You know what I'm saying? I've been hearing rumblings the last few years that like, it's coming again. Now it may not hit, the market may not crash and hit as much as it did in 2008. You know what I'm saying? Because the infrastructure has kind of changed. Banks are never going to allow everybody to get mortgages like they were doing back in that time. But do you think that it's upon us? And if so, are there some tips and strategies that you would say, tell people to do to really be proactive and really do their due diligence, to kind of like, make sure that you're safe in that time?
Absolutely. And, working in the bank industry, I can tell you for sure, the powers that be from way up are predicting a recession within the next 12 to 16 months of some sort.
Soon.
They don't know exactly how bad it's going to be. Nobody got a crystal ball, but they're anticipating, some type of recession. And I think for me, one thing I learned, like starting when I did in the midst of the last recession, was that I buy for cash flow. Mm-hmm. And when I say I buy for cash flow, when I buy a rental property, I'm looking at what it's going to make me every month. So, I look at it like the equity. You always want to buy under market value if you can. But like that's the cherry on top, the equity essentially that you have within the property. But for me, as long as I finance it right and it cash flow every month, essentially I could be underwater on it. It could be if I owe $30,000 on it and it's only worth $15,000. It don't matter if I don't need to refinance or I don't need to sell that property. As long as it's making me money every month, I'm good, you know? And I saw a lot of people working in collections capacity 10 years ago that, they said, my house is $100,000 underwater. There's no benefit in making a payment. Even though they could on paper actually still afford that house, they looked at it as a standpoint where it's not worth it to continue making that payment. But that same house today is probably worth 20% more or 30% more. Like a lot of those houses came back. It's the market is just ups and downs and waves. It goes ups and downs, but if your fundamentals is right and how you buy, and that's why I say I always buy for cash flow with rental properties. I flip properties, and that's a whole different mindset. Equity is everything when you're looking at a flip. But from a rental property standpoint, it's all about return on investment. And as long as you financed it right up front, and your cash flow every month, and you making money every month, good, you know.
Which one do you prefer? Do you prefer the buy and holding, or do you prefer flipping?
Both. Both.
Right.
Ain't nothing like making $50,000, getting a check for $50K.
Right.
But at the same time, it's a lot riskier to flip a house, than some people will say,
it may take you 16 months to get that $50K back.
Exactly.
Right.
I say this, me and my landlord friends, the flips make you feel like you're getting rich, but the rental properties keep the lights on.
Right.
And you need to keep the lights on too at the same time. Right. So and especially it's all about a numbers game with rental properties. With one rental property, you might not feel like you've seen a big difference, but when you get 5 or 6 of them, or more, and you got, you netting $100 profit after paying expenses every month on each property, that's like a second job. Like, I think 2 years ago, I hit the point where my rental properties and flips and stuff, I made more money off of that than I do my day job. And that's when I'm like, I wholeheartedly need to take this business as serious, if not more serious than my day job. And my end goal is to one day get out of the day job. But like you said, you touched on earlier, it's important to have that job to fund your dream, because at the end of the day, if I would have quit my job 2-3 years ago and just went full-fledged, I would have been in bankruptcy at this point, So you do what you got to do, until you can do what you want to do.
So do you have a time frame out in your mind that you how much longer you gonna work in the industry, or is it more so when your bank account look a certain way?
I definitely got a timetable in my head, but it's all about, executing, deals and whatnot to, and if I can actually execute, then yeah. But ideally, in my personal opinion, I want to say I got another 2 years in the workforce.
Really? Good.
I got another 2 years in the workforce. Okay. My wife might say otherwise, but in my mind, that's what I'm thinking.
You got the 2 years. Okay. Yeah. I'm not mad at that. You've touched on this a little bit throughout the podcast today. But really talk to me and dive into me about, the family aspect of it. How early are you introducing your children to, to the real estate space? Is it something that you just kind of like showing them so they can see it like your parents did with you? Or are you really, really introducing them to like what it is you're doing, how you go about doing it, the importance of it, the legacy aspect of it? Talk to me a little bit about that.
Absolutely. I take my kids with me. Like, my kids know all my tenants. They know, which house is which. Like, we drive down, Hawkins, and my son would say, that's daddy's house, just because.
Yeah, that's dope.
I want to get them exposed to it as early as possible, because it's one of those things where if my son, when he grow up, if he don't want to go to college, I want him to go to college and become a doctor or do whatever the hell he want to do. But if he don't want to, you can come work with me, and that's one of the main reasons I do it. And the same for my daughter, so I think for them, I'm constantly, talking to them and showing them and even bringing them to my job sites. They might not be able to hang around for too long because they start getting into stuff, but yeah, and like, it was dope. Like, it really hit me one day. I was in my garage at my house changing like a light on a ladder. And my son came out, he's 4, he came out and he said, "Daddy, when I get big, I'm going to work with you." And it's like, that really hit me more than anything, because it's like, this my little dude, and he want to do this. He's watching me, so it's bigger than me. And I think that was instilled in me most importantly by my dad. Like, he always would say, it ain't about your first name, it's about your last name.
Right.
Like, I'm not doing this for me. He's like, yeah, I want a Benz, but I want to see y'all go to college more so, so like, I kind of let him down. I ain't get the degree, but I think he's happy with what I'm doing and where I'm at and what I'm trying to get to, because it's bigger than me, and that's what I'm constantly thinking, next generation,
Yeah, that resonates with me. You know what I'm saying? I'm about to have a son real soon, really at any day now.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to that. But like, one of the reasons for like starting this podcast, getting into the real estate space, was all about that foresight of thinking about like, what comes after me. You know what I'm saying? Like, I didn't really have anybody that instilled the ways and the strategies to be able to like, get into something to provide residual income and like the importance of that. But now that I do have the information, have the relationships, like people like yourself, it's super important for me to try to instill that. Like, I can't wait for the day when my son is like 4 years old and we can ride around, look at the rental properties. I can do exactly what you said, and really like just plant those seeds into him early. Even if he don't get into it like full fledged, like, I don't care what you do, son. Get you some rental properties. Do something in the space. You know what I'm saying? Have something you know what I'm saying, in the real estate space, regardless, because no matter what you do, there's real estate in everything. Whether you got to live somewhere, whether you work somewhere, whether you going to a basketball game, a football game, the doctor's office, anywhere, it's real estate.
That's so true.
Everywhere, you know what I'm saying? So that resonates, you know what I'm saying, with me, you know what I'm saying? So I can definitely, you know, appreciate that. Talk to me about, like, how do you balance? Because again, I'm getting ready to be a new father. I've been married. It'll be almost 2 years. You know what I'm saying? In May. How do you balance real estate investing, family life, and having a full-time job?
Man,
how do you do that?
It's a lot. But I think you got to just stay focused on why you're doing it and what's most important. Like, to me, you know, God and family is most important for me. So, like, I don't want to sacrifice too much of my time just solely working on the rental properties, because that's extremely important to me, but my time with my kids is more important. So I think when I was younger and I did more physically at my properties than I do now, unless I have to. Like, don't get it twisted. If, like I was talking about the deal in 2018, the duplex, I did more at that house than I've done at any house because I had to at that point, you know?
Right.
But if it's up to me, I'm going to subcontract most of the stuff out and try and get it done within an affordable price point to where I can maximize my time with my family. And essentially, I'm bringing them over, you know, my kids with me over to look at the property, to check up on the work and make sure stuff is getting done the way it needs to be done, and talking to them and letting them know why I'm doing this and, you know, what's going on. So they're aware of what daddy is doing and, you know, why I'm doing it.
Yeah.
So,
tell me something that you may have done or learned as a kid that no longer serves you today. You know what I'm saying? Something that you want to make sure that your kids do not do. You know what I'm saying? Something that you may have gotten into, you know what I'm saying, back in the day. You like, all right, I'm going to make sure, you know, my kids do not have to experience nothing like that.
I think, man, just being on top of them about just making poor choices. Like, I made a lot of poor choices at a young age that just was unnecessary, you know, and like I made shit harder for myself than what it really, I needed to make it harder for myself.
Right.
And when I noticed when you in a hole, it's a motherfucker digging out of that hole.
Right.
So it's like just being conscious of like just the poor decisions that you're making when you're making them, because there's certain stuff you can't come back on, you know. And it's like, hey, mom and dad might love you, but you get yourself put in the box, they can't come and get you, you know. So like you just want to stay out of that. And I think I'm gonna be. My wife tell me I'm like overprotective, but it's one of those things where I'd rather be overprotective than underprotective.
Right.
I'm gonna still give them their leeway to be who they is and do what they want to do, but
it's your job to be on them.
It's my job to be on them, and I take that serious more than anything. So
100%. I love that, man. Listen, man, I appreciate you. You know what I'm saying, so much. Not just for coming here today, but literally any and every time I hit you up, yo, I need you, man. You always text back. You always like, yo, I'm free. Hit me this time. You always there to give me some insight, some game. I really appreciate that, man. I tell Sierra all the time, listen, man, Marlan always there, you know, to give me, you know, the tutelage in the game that I need. And again, I wouldn't be in this space if it wasn't for you. You know, I wouldn't be interested in this space if it wasn't for you. I can specifically being 25-ish, living with my granny. And at the time, like, she had got sick, you know what I'm saying? And we were getting ready to set her house up to where she would have to have like around the clock care at the house. So I knew that, like, all right, I can't be here too much longer. And I was getting ready to come to you to go rent something from you. And I never forget, I asked, hey, man, do you think I should rent something or buy something? He's like, bro, real talk, man, just go try to buy you something. I said, man, what? He said, it really ain't that easy. And the rest was history, man. So I appreciate you, you know, really kind of like sparking that in me, and continue to help me along the way. One of my reasons for starting this podcast is just really try to highlight people that I know, and really show why they're important to me, and really just shed light on them. You know what I'm saying? Man. So I really, you know, appreciate you, you know what I'm saying, coming, you know, and doing this with me. Before we end, I got like 5 or 6 rapid questions I'm gonna ask you.
That's cool.
That I do to everybody. It's February. It's the start of the 2020, still the new year. Do you have any intentions for this year as a whole? General intentions?
Just keep growing the rental portfolio. My goal is, you know, try and flip maybe 1 or 2 houses a year within that same time while still growing the rental portfolio. You know, up my savings, pay down some more debt. It's a constant process. Like it's not, all right, I'm here, you know, like it's constantly doing that, you know. So I think that's just staying in that mindset and, just trying to be the best, dad and husband I can be, and hey, taking it to the next level. That's the goal, man.
Yeah, that's dope. When you hear the phrase "live your purpose," what does that mean to you?
Live your purpose, man. I mean, I think certain people in life is destined for greatness. Everybody has a purpose in life, and it's just, for me, live your purpose means just reaching your full potential, whatever your full potential is. Somebody's potential might be, to be the best basketball player in the world and 4-time NBA champion, whatever. Somebody else's might just be, to be the best mom and dad you can be. Whatever your purpose is, take it serious and do your best with it,
right.
Because being the best mom and dad is just as important, if not more important, than being on TV.
100%.
You know what I'm saying? Because you shaping a life who your kid might be the one who cure AIDS or cancer one day. So just whatever your purpose is in life, put both feet in the water and go as hard as you can.
No doubt. What's something about you that people will be surprised to know?
Surprised to know? I don't know, man. I'm an open book. Surprised to know. I'm trying to think. I used to hoop with LeBron back in the day.
Okay,
that's
right.
my fun fact.
Okay.
I tell everybody, I used to hoop with LeBron. I didn't go to St. V, but we was shooting stars back in the day.
Okay, all right.
And the big homie, man, one thing I can say I learned from him is he worked harder than everybody in every practice, every game. Like, dude won every sprint. Like, and just, you know what I'm saying? Like, I remember being a little kid and seeing dude, Brian, and like, I'm like, man, how you get your hops? Like, dude just start dunking out of nowhere, like cramming on dudes. I'm like, what you do? He's like, man, I've been doing these calf races on the steps. Like, I do at least 100, 200 a night while I'm going up the steps at Summit Lake. And that's motivational to me, because I'm thinking like, shoot, I don't live in Summit Lake, but I got the means to do it. He doing it because he have to while he going up the steps every day. But like, he take it that serious, and this dude win every sprint. Like, he play harder than anybody else, and he way better than all of us too. You know what I'm saying?
So like, not only do he got the talent, but the work ethic.
Man. Yeah. And I noticed that just with like successful people I see and encounter in life, they got talent too, but they work harder than anybody else in their respective field. Like, they give 120% every time, anytime. Like, and that's what it takes to really move from here to move to there. Yeah,
I had Rome on the podcast. He was the last guest on the podcast, and that's one thing he said about Brian too. He like, man, people don't know that like Brian's work ethic is nuts. It's ridiculous. You know what I'm saying? And that's people who know him. You know what I'm saying? People who have had opportunities to really kind of get in this space. They echo that same thing. So you know what I'm saying? So that's dope. You know what I'm saying? To kind of hear. Tell me something that scares you.
Failure, man.
Okay.
Failure is my biggest fear. You know what I'm saying? And when I say failure, I just mean let my family down. Like, I got little kids that depend on me, a wife that depend on me. So like, every day I feel like I gotta be my best. You can't take no days off in this life. It'll be days you feel like I don't feel like doing this shit. But if I don't do it, then who gonna do it for me? Because I know ain't nobody else gonna do it for me. So, just, and not living up to my potential. Because there's been a lot of times in life where I feel like I let myself down. Like, I didn't give everything that I should have gave, and the outcome could have been better. So like, to avoid them type of scenarios, just go as hard as you can.
I like that. Tell me your favorite quote, scripture, or your favorite book recommendation.
I mean, book-wise, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, from a financial standpoint, that's a good one. It's not a book, but I always tell anybody who's looking to get into like real estate investment, go on biggerpockets.com.
Yeah, Bigger Pockets is
a gem.
Everything. Yeah,
it's a gem. Like, besides just working in the industry, I learned more just staying up late at night and browsing these, articles from people who really is doing the exact same thing in the same type of niche market that I'm looking at, and apply my real estate skills to, and just seeing what worked for them, what hasn't worked. Like, you really go get the knowledge is what I can say. Like, in our podcast, I can't touch on everything, but like, the knowledge is out there. So just dig deep and definitely try and find it, So.
Yeah, that's dope. If you could pick up a phone and call your 20-year-old self, what would you tell him?
20-year-old self? Quit chasing them girls, man. They gonna be there. No, quit chasing them girls. Focus on, your books. Maybe drop the major and go pick up a hammer. Like, even if it wasn't, in a trade ship, hey, it would behoove me to have picked up a construction job just so I'd be further ahead now than I am if I would have done that, and just focus, man.
Yeah.
Like, my level of focus at that time, man, I was just trying to do everything that I, just trying to live, and it's like, had I had that level of focus then that I feel like I got now, I'd be further in life. And I think that applies to most people. So 20-year-olds, man, keep your head in the books, whatever you're doing. Don't lose that. Don't get distracted, because all that other shit is still gonna be there.
Right. Yeah. Keep grinding, man. What's the best advice you ever received?
Best advice I ever received is just keep going. Man,
Yeah.
keep going. It can always get worse.
Yeah.
It can always be worse. You can always be more fucked up than you is right now.
Right.
Or you can, put your nose down and stick to your grind, and it can get better, And when it do get better, keep that same energy that you had when you was fucked up,
Right, for sure. I like that. On that note, man, we gonna end it. I end it the same way every time. One of my inspirations for starting this podcast is Arian Foster. He used to play running back for the Texans back in the day. He actually started a podcast once he retired. And like one thing that he always does to end his podcast is he asks his guests to lobby for Jim Carrey to come on his show. So one of the ways that I kind of like just pay homage to him, and like just put it, manifest it, man. We gonna put it out there in the universe. I asked my guests to look at that camera right there and lobby for Arian Foster and tell him why he should be on the Live Your Purpose podcast.
Arian Foster, you should be on a podcast for the simple fact that John is living his purpose. He holding it down. He doing everything he can for his family to make a brighter future for himself, and he shedding light on positive topics for the greater good of our community. So you put good and good together, and you got great. Come on the podcast, bro.
On that, man, we out. Darrell D. Cole.